Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Rowe.
And I'm Nique.
And welcome to The Invisible Men, where we make the achievements of incredible men invisible no more. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of The Invisible Men. My name is Ian Rowe, resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute.
Hello, I'm Nique, a member of the Leadership Network at AEI.
Hey, Nique, good to see you. All right. Well, our viewers know we love to showcase some incredible Black men who are just doing some pretty special work that some of us may not know about, or not enough of us know about. And today we have the incomparable Roland Fryer. Hello, Roland. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So good to see you. So you are not only a professor of economics at Harvard, you are at Harvard University. You are the youngest tenured Black professor in the history of Harvard University at age 30. That is
sad, isn't it?
Man, look, that is amazing. That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so before we even get to all that, how you were able to do that at age 30 and some of the research you've done, we'd love to just hear a little bit about you, young Roland, before you even knew what the word tenure meant. Were there any experiences you growing up that had a particular impact on how you thought about the world, especially around issues of race?
Oh man, I don't know how much time you got. I'll give you the headline, and then you can decide if you want to dig in. I was raised partially by my grandmother, who lived in Daytona Beach, Florida. I was born in Daytona Beach, and just lived the vast majority of my life, all of my life as a kid, in the South. And so the South has a different way of thinking about race, and race is just a different object in the South than it is up north. And so I grew up on the one hand of my grandmother telling me these amazing stories of, going to work and being spit on, et cetera. In 1969, she integrated white schools. She was a sixth grade English teacher, and apparently one of the best around, according to her. And so they didn't have value add back then, I guess.
Right.
When the schools were integrated, they asked her to go and work in white schools. And so she went from her neighborhood in Daytona Beach, Florida, over to Port Orange, which was a much more affluent area, and taught there. So she had many, many stories, and listened to that. On the other hand, I spent another portion of my childhood right outside of Dallas, Texas, in a small town outside of Dallas. And there, race was really palpable, but in a different way. It was very matter of fact. Okay, so there were some parts of it that were bad. There were notes left in my cubby as an elementary school kid that I didn't love. There were other parts of it that, again, I don't know how to describe. It was like almost like food preferences are among the elite, right? You have someone over for dinner and they send you an email. I don't like cauliflower. I don't eat this. I've got a nut allergy, things like that. That would be considered rude in the South to do something like that to people, but here it's commonplace. Down there, we'd be playing outside, basketball, football, what have you, and we'd want to break for snacks, and we'd say, we're going to go to Bobby's house. Okay. And Bobby would just look at you and say, dude, we don't let Black people in our house. Oh, okay, well, we'll go somewhere else. Like, it was just like so matter of fact. And the whole truth of it is, sometimes Bobby would say, well, I got Sour Patch Kids. They're like, peace, Roller. It was cost and benefits. It was amazing, but it was so matter of fact. It was almost emotionless in that sense. It was very different. And so I grew up with race all around me in that way. But on the other hand, I played sports from 5 years old all the way through college. And so there was this interracial mixing on sports teams and team camaraderie. And so on the one hand, part of my environment was telling me, be careful of every white person you met. On the other part of my environment, a white teacher is the one who stayed after school to make sure I could learn how to read. And so that's the kind of
that's the duality
duality that I grew up in, and many of us grow up in. I'm not unique. Let me be clear about that. And so race was always this interesting struggle for me, because as you can imagine, as I aged, and I'll shut up, as I aged, like interracial dating was weird, right? In the South,
right.
That was very strange, and how you navigated that. And so I would say that I grew. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, so, but you know, as you say, it's sort of so matter of fact. But do you remember how it made you feel when Bobby said, "Well, you know, like we're cool, we're friends, but I can't have you come to my house"? Like, how did that touch you?
Perhaps I'm strange, but there was a level of compartmentalization with those things that it just didn't. Looking back, I felt like that was on Bobby's parents, not on Bobby, right? And so It was just a level of compartmentalization.
Wow. That's
because
deep.
I never thought Bobby doesn't want me in the house. I always thought Bobby's parents did, right? And so again, maybe it's too much compartmentalization. I don't know. That's too deep for me. But I can remember back then, just we were friends. But you know, we got over stuff quickly. We compartmentalized. We would get in fights, you know, playing football and getting too rough with each other, and then you know, you go over his house for dinner. It didn't. There was a level of just letting things slide off that was a part of my childhood. So I want to just add to that one thing, which is halfway important. Yes, race was all around us, but I don't ever remember anyone being debilitated by it. You know what I'm saying? Like no one used that as a brought it up at the forefront of their thinking for why they couldn't do something or what was influencing their thinking. It just was. It was a matter of fact kind of thing.
Wow. Well, that's pretty powerful, because right now in the current context, race has been portrayed as the omnipresent barrier that a lot of folks can't and we're going to come to that. So tell us a little bit more about your journey. So you were a big sports player, cool. Yeah. And then how did you end up on the pathway to becoming this status at Harvard?
Pure luck, man. I don't know. School was not my thing. I never studied in school. It was more social to me than academic. I did enough to ensure that, you know, my grandmother was okay with it, but that usually was B's and C's. I just didn't, you know, I never really applied myself in school. I'm not proud of it, but I just didn't. It's the truth. And when I got to college, I had a professor who really just turned the light switch on for me. There were two of them. One was in statistics and one was in economics. And you know, when I walked into sociology class, it's like, it was, you know, everything depends on everything else. And, you know, they had these big words I didn't understand. And I looked around and everyone was nodding and I was completely confused. When I walked into my first economics class, the lecture was about halfway through. I looked around and everyone looked confused, and I'd never had more clarity in my life. Really, like it made total sense to me, right? So the sociology class was everything depends on everything else, and so you can't really know the cause of anything. And the economics department was, you know, people are self-interested jerks and they maximize their own utility. And I was like, now that I clearly understand, right? And so that's a way to predict.
They're linear relationships, right?
Very clear, right? And so I would meet him. Class was at 8, and now that I'm a professor, I know what he was doing. But back then, he had office hours at 7 a.m. And I was there every day. You know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was there Monday and Wednesday, 7 a.m.
Wow.
You know, how do you think about this government policy? How do you think about that? You know, what are the incentive, you know, components of a welfare system? Like that stuff turned me on from, I was age 18, 19. I never thought like that. No one ever taught like that. And so it was a way to use linear logic, as you said, Ian, to questions that I thought were really relevant to all the arguments I had with my grandmother, right? My grandmother and I used to argue all the time in the most spirited way. And, you know, she would tell me, you keep living, you're gonna understand what I'm telling you now. And I would say, Grandma, do all old people agree? Right. And she was, so we had these spirited arguments about race, right? Because for her, many interactions in a day-to-day basis were considered to be racism. for me, I thought, well, is there another explanation for that? And as I've gotten older, I get it. She was coming to those interactions with a very different lens. I didn't integrate schools, right? I wasn't spit on in that way. And so even a Bayesian actor, someone who's rational, with that as the backdrop, might interpret unclear signals in a different way than I might. So I get it, right? But it just, again, made for a, let's call it frothy environment where race, economics, statistics were all, applied to things that I've been arguing with my family about for forever, right? Like, my statistics professor got me thinking, when is it rational to pay the lottery? What does the pot have to be where the expected value is greater than $1 for the ticket, right? And so I'd run home to my uncle. I told you shouldn't be playing the lottery. Literally something that I applied right away. Whereas, frankly, some of the arts, the Western philosophy, reading about Socrates and Plato, and that just didn't do it for me.
And Roland, my understanding is that you originally were going to college to spend a lot of time playing sports.
Yeah.
But in fact, you pushed all that to the side as well when you found your calling, as it were. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, comparative advantage. I saw that people were really good at that, and I was able to say, look, in 5 years, this is going to be a hobby. So I remember the exact thought. In 5 years, this is going to be a hobby. Why not make it a hobby now? What am I going to glean over the next 5 years? And I had been, I was born in 1977. My birthday is June 4th, 1977. So I forged my birth certificate so that I could work at McDonald's at 13 by taking the handwritten 4 and figuring out how to get it over on the 7. So it looked like June 4th, 1974. So at 13, I was working full-time at McDonald's. I was in 8th grade. And I had worked full-time. Before that, at 12, I was reupholstering furniture. And that was my first job. And then it was McDonald's. I always wanted money in my pocket and didn't have any, so a job was the only way to do it. And so the point of that is I've been working full-time all the way up through high school. In high school, I was in voc ed, right? So a lot of people don't know that before there was the economics nerd, the big data nerd Roland, there was a brother who thought he was going to be delivering fades up in cosmetology, right? I was in voc ed, okay? Full-time job from 12 onward. And so the point of that is when I got to college and could focus on actually just studying and didn't have to work full time, I was like, this thing is easy. Do you mean like that's all I have to do? Right? And I didn't have some drama at home around me. And so for me, college was like, wow, like you add that to the interesting set of questions. And that's the reason I got a PhD. I was like, this is the funnest thing ever. Like, why would I want to stop this? It's amazing. I know what work is like, right? But this is great. And so for me, it wasn't like I had, any teachers in middle school said, oh, you're that smart. I mean, I was in special ed in middle school because of my behavior, right? I mean, all I wanted to do was tell your mama jokes. That's all I was good at, and that's all I wanted to do. And if we got time at the end, I'll show you all some skills. But anyway, no,
okay. All right, you got to tell us one.
At any rate, so for me, college was a place where it all turned on because the classes were interesting. I could choose them, and just my mental space was freed up from being away from that home environment and having the time not have to work.
Got it. And how would
Ian, I just want to make one observation for the audience, especially the young people. So what you heard the brother say is, I moved away from sports because I made an economic decision that studying was going to get me farther. I just want to make the point that I don't know, however many years later, he was awarded a MacArthur award, which comes with, you can look it up, $500,000, $600,000, basically free grant to do whatever you want with. So young people, his economic mind led him down a path that actually, even based on the economics, the dollars and cents, was actually prudent and appropriate.
Okay. Got it. So
No, it happened. Okay, well, sorry. He said, I got to do one thing. I first got the Harvard people coming to me and said, could you come check out my kid? I heard you're pretty good at sports. I want you to check out my kid. He got a high school football game on Friday. And I said the same thing every time. Do they get tackled? What do you mean, do they get tackled? Easy question. Do they get tackled? Of course they get tackled, but he ran for 80 yards. Tell them to focus on school. It's just that simple. You have to understand how good you have to be, right? Like Ian, you'll appreciate this. I brought a bunch of kids from the PS 399 in Bedford-Stuy, New York, up to Harvard as a class trip. Okay, yep. So we're sitting in the middle of Harvard Square. I am an assistant professor. I tell the toughest seventh grader, why don't we do a foot race to John Harvard? If the old professor beats you, you focus on school.
Whoa. And of course they were like, okay? Bet.
He was like, bet, I'm going to dust you off. Right? And I said, he said, what if I win? I said, you win, a Harvard professor will come in a pink dress to your school. Okay? Now, I didn't beat him as much as I should have, but I did get him. I got a little nervous about 40 yards in. But that's my point. And I just wanted to add on that sports is awesome. It taught me so much grit and resilience and toughness. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. But if it comes to making decisions about how much human capital, that is, how much education, how much studying you're doing, it's an easy choice. For the vast majority of people, it's an easy choice.
Yeah, no. When I was in high school, I was a good baseball player. I mean, I was, I had dreams of grandeur. But when I got to Cornell, my parents shut that down. They're like, no. And honestly, they were like, no, their attitude was, we've seen too many black boys get so enamored by this dream of becoming the next, name the athlete. And they just shut it down. They just shut it down. But
yeah, and I'm not trying to kill anyone's dream.
What's that?
I'm not trying to kill anyone's dreams. If you're not getting tackled, do your thing. But if you're struggling to get 100 yards in high school, come on, join me with the nerds, baby.
There you go. All right. So Roland, so now this is all good. So tell us just give us an overview, because I want to get into some policing stuff. I want to get into your new thing, Reconstruction. What's your overall ethos in terms of what drives your interest in research? Because you've done some great stuff I run charter schools, so I know you've got some great stuff there, policing. But what ties it all together in terms of what you're trying to uncover for all of us to understand?
When I first took my steps on Harvard, even before that, I fundamentally believed that one of the big issues confronting Black people in the United States was we just didn't have the data, we didn't have the evidence of what specific things we could do to make things better. And so, my grandmother, again, we talked every day until she passed away. And I would tell her what I was working on. She's like, I told you that back in 19, whatever. Yes, Grandma, but ain't nobody listening to you because you don't have good data visualization. Okay. And so we would joke about that all the time. But I really did believe that if I just had the right data on the right question, that the arc of history was going to bend towards truth. And so it was really just all about not having the appropriate data. Okay. And for a long period, I was able to believe that because a lot of the stuff I did just didn't work. And so I just thought, that didn't work. But as I started to mature as a professor and to have the luck of getting things that did work, the lack of adoption in the public sector really troubles me. And so the reason I did research was because I wanted a fact base. I really believed that, and still believe, that if you look at the data carefully and you actually use science to help understand and fix the issues of being Black in America, that is the best way forward. That this is not I know this will sound naive, but this is my point of view. Like, some people play this as politics and power, and I get that. I'm not naive enough to understand that's not important. But I really thought that having the facts right was really key. And so I set out on an absolute personal mission of 80 hours a week for 2 decades to do that, to have proof that was above reproach, to tackle issues like police, like education, like health, like the crack epidemic, and to do what inspired me when I walked into that first economics class, which is to use the best possible tools to approach the hardest social problems. Right? It didn't make any sense to me in graduate school, Ian, that the toughest and the best minds were working on problems like the optimal cake eating problem.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas things about race, inequality, gender, those we left up to, Hannity and Combs at the time to debate.
Without data,
right? And so that drove me nuts. Okay. And I wanted to do something about that. And so that's what we did. We went after that problem. And I don't know how much progress we've made, not enough for my taste, but that was the goal.
So, my brother, we're gonna pivot to what we call our speed round, which we do with all of our guests on the Invisible Men podcast. And I'm going to give you a couple of names or maybe a couple of philosophies and ask you to pick one and tell us why. So we'll start with Malcolm or Martin.
Oh man, I'm a Malcolm guy, yeah, it's just by any means necessary. I mean it in terms of data, but and my methods, but just very inspiring to me.
Civil rights or economic development?
Mm-hmm. If we're talking about now, then I would say development generally. Economic development, talent development.
And the last one is more of a fun one, put you in an awkward spot. The University of Chicago Economics Department or Harvard University's Economics Department? I know you spent time in both.
It's the easiest one you've asked so far. University of Chicago all day long. They treat, that is the first place that marries academics and full contact sport for me. Right? So I absolutely love it. I just tell you one quick story. Sherwin Rosen, famous labor economist in Chicago. I took his last labor class before he died. He used to smoke cigarettes and chain smoke them, right? That kind of guy, and blow out the window. And I was a third-year graduate student, and they asked me to present in the big seminar. It's a big deal where all the Nobel Prize guys are there. And he says, I want to tell you, we ain't no liberals. We ain't hitting you with kid gloves. I said, bring it on, man. Right? It was, we had this relationship, man, where I remember the first time we discussed discrimination. I know we're over, but one last thing. First time we discussed discrimination. You got to understand, I had no idea of how economists thought about discrimination. So we went in and we talked about Becker's theory of discrimination. Okay. So Becker's theory is the reason I don't hire you is because I have a utility cost of interacting with you. It makes me feel worse, and so that's why I don't. And so that sounded like discrimination to me. So I said, that's discrimination. He says, nah, because what happens is that people who don't have that preference, the black labor force goes there, and so you have segregation, but you don't have discrimination. I said, that makes no sense to me. The discrimination is what causes segregation. And he sat there with this delight on his face and said, no. and I was getting furious. Right? And we went back and forth. It was like the class wasn't there. And of course, I'm too dumb to realize these other graduate students are like, are you crazy? This is Sherwin Rosen. But we're going at it, right? It is an hour of discussion, just he and I. And I leave thinking, this white man's racist. I'm out. I call my grandmother on the way back to the dorm and tell her, my grandmother's name was Faris. We call her. I said, Fatty, yeah, boy, you ain't gonna believe these white boys. Okay, it's like it was bad. They all crazy. And next class period, I decided to skip. I ain't going to this dude's class. Racist. So I'm walking across campus getting some lunch, and here he comes. And so he comes up to me and says, "You weren't in class today." I said, "Oh man, this morning I had a stomach ache. Oh my God."
Yeah.
Okay. He said, "Well, just want to let you know I missed you." And I was like, this sick freak like that shit? That was fun to you? And I went back to class the next day, and we had a semester of throwdown. And I have never learned so much, man. Like, it was the only true, honest, no holds barred discussion I've had on race since. And it was unbelievable. You can't, what he did in that classroom to teach me, you can't do anymore.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Trust me, I know. You can't do it anymore. Because I use that method to teach. No more. Like, you can't do it anymore. It was real. It was in your face. It was Socratic. It was pushing the boundaries. It was telling me things he didn't necessarily believe himself to illustrate points of where the limits of economic reasoning were. It was brilliant, and I'm so grateful to him. But you can't do that anymore. So University of Chicago, all day long, and thanks to Sherwin Rosen.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, Roland, we are down to our last question. And
Okay.
no, seriously. And this, listening to this entire conversation, maybe it continues to be the most important question, because there is a 16-year-old out there in the world. There is a Darryl who lives in forgotten USA, this imaginary urban city. Darryl is hearing the false narratives. Darryl is hearing data, which is not the data that you're talking about, which is the truth. He's hearing a lot of things that are informing his view of the world. So if you had Darryl in front of you and you were said, all right, man, look, I want you to be successful. I've committed my life to your success. This is what my advice is to you. What would you tell him?
Easy. Effort matters. Skills matter. And then I would expect pushback. What about this? What about that? And I wouldn't even coin it as false narrative versus this. That's already giving it everything too much credence. It is about what the returns are to effort and skills. And there are millions of data points to say they are very positive, independent of what race or group you are. Yes, Darryl, there's discrimination. Yes, someone's going to call you the N-word. Yes, someone's going to put their hands in you. I'm not saying there's not taxes. But what I'm saying is that effort and skills are rewarded in the marketplace. And that's your best shot. And because what's the other alternative?
Right. What's the other alternative? Roland Fryer. This was a tour de force, my friend.
Hey, man, it was fun. Sorry for the rambling, but I get all
No. This is just, it's great. It's great. I mean, this is exactly why Nique and I have joined forces to do this podcast. Well, for all of our viewers, thank you for listening and watching another episode of The Invisible Men. If you want to see any other episodes, you can go to www.invisible.men. We will have information about Reconstruction on our website. We'll have other information, other research that Roland Fryer has done on education, on policing, his body of work. And Roland, just thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is a blast. Let's do it again.
Thank you for watching another episode of The Invisible Men. You can find other episodes at the AEI podcast channel on YouTube or the website invisible.men or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.